Welcome back to episode number 1 of the Clubhouse Briefing Podcast, which technically I know it's episode number 2, but I'm going to count this as episode number 1 since the last episode was just an introduction. So this one, episode number 1, technically 2, but I won't mention that going forward. But I am your host, Colton Kelly, and I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch or listen to this podcast, depending on where you're viewing us from. I know we're on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts, and so wherever you are, hope you're enjoying your day. You're having a good day. It is a Saturday here in Texas, and it's 85 degrees, and so cold enough to start kind of wearing the hoodies and other stuff. But, I recently got this Sunday red hoodie and just was very excited to bust it out. And so I thought, okay, a Saturday at 5 o'clock is pretty good to do that. So hopefully wherever you are in the world or in the U.S., you're enjoying today. I know it's the Ryder Cup week. And so just looking at this, it's Saturday, like I mentioned. And so the U.S. has a lot of work to do. It's currently 11 and a half to 4.5 points with Europe winning. And so looks like everything's done. And so, yeah, tomorrow, Sunday, the U.S. is going to have to come out strong. And yeah, I'll report back on that in a future episode. But like I said, it's a good day. I've been excited to make this podcast, but also share it with y'all. It's been something that's been very, informing for me. It showed me a lot of things about the golf industry, especially professional golf, because today we're going to be talking about the highest paid golfers for 2025. We're going to cover first the highest paid golfers on the PGA Tour and LIV Golf Tour, and you'll actually learn where they derive their income from, whether it's on course or off course. We'll talk about second thing with the official earnings of the PGA and of LIV Golf, and then what are the top 10 earners on each tour. And then lastly, we're going to compare how the 2025 PGA Tour earnings compares to 2005, 2015, 2020, and just look at how the game is trending in terms of just how much are players earning? Are they earning more per shot, per start, and also on a yearly basis? And so real fast before we start diving into the facts and figures, I want to let everyone know that I will have all of my resources, all the data that I use, primarily just the resources, maybe not the data because it's just a lot of Excel tabs, but I will definitely have the websites and the resources that I used, and they'll be linked in the show notes. I haven't done that yet. I'm pretty sure on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, there's a part of the description where I can do that. And so I will have all of my show notes, all of my resources down there. And I wanted to mention that before we get started. So, all right. First, I want to start with the PGA Tour's 2025 earnings. And so a little bit of backstory and history. So far in 2025, from the Century Championship in Hawaii to the Tour Championship, which took place about a month ago by this point, the PGA Tour is awarded $525.4 million in purse prize money for 2025, with the last tournament being played, the FedEx Cup, paying out $40 million in prize money. LIV Golf has awarded its players $260 million in purse money for 2025, and including its team championship, which they played in Michigan, that number jumps up to $310 million. That tournament, the LIV Golf Team Championship in Michigan, it paid out $50 million in prize money. And so I want to start by giving LIV credit for this. Money, at least to the extent that it's talked about now, wasn't discussed within the professional golf community anywhere like this 3, 5, 10 years ago. I mean, there's more discussion about it online, on social media, during broadcast than when I grew up playing the game and watching tournament golf on TV. And whenever LIV Golf entered the scene, and they started offering players the signing bonuses and the tens of millions, along with the larger purses that they promised, that caught everyone's attention. So LIV Golf made players, along with the golfing community as a whole, discuss whether there needs to be higher payouts for professional golfers. And so I really have to give them credit for pushing the needle. But at the same time, it may be a double-edged sword, because now it seems like every time I look at a PGA tournament, the weekly payouts for the golf tournaments are all that's being discussed. Things that we used to talk about so much, like legacy, playing status, and the stories about the history of the game, seem to be swallowed up by every week the record-shattering payouts that golfers are getting, or the bonuses through new programs offered to the game's elite. And so it's just, I'll give LIV credit for it, but it's also a double-edged sword that money's become more of a factor. You can't ignore it. You can't get on a PGA Tour broadcast or a LIV Golf broadcast without money being brought up in some capacity. But I want to talk about why should you care? I'll get into the PGA Tour numbers like I said, but why should you care? Why should the average golf fan care about this? And especially you. I mean, you're watching a golf finance podcast. And so I would describe you as someone like myself who cares more about the game than a weekend golfer would. But why should I care about this? I'll say 3 reasons for that. The first reason is that bigger purses are drawing more of golf's stars into the same competing space. So it's bringing them all together to play in the same competition. And as purses get larger, more of the game's top talent will theoretically show up due to there being more money on the table. Now, obviously, as we've seen this year with Rory McIlroy, that's not guaranteed. Players are going to prioritize their events based on whether it gives them preparation for a specific event. Like the Open comes to mind. A lot of the PGA Tour players will go over to Scotland. They'll play in the Scottish Open to get ready for the major tournament that's coming up. And so they're going to play based on what gives them preparation. And they're, depending on how much they play, they're going to want to have off weeks. They're going to want to have times where it's just like, I'm not going to fly to California if everything else is going to be in Florida, Texas, southeast of the United States. And so based on their schedule, what they're preparing for, but also their schedule and what they play for is also going to have to work in time for them to recover. But theoretically, like I said, more money brings everyone together and competes in the same space. Second thing is that larger purses actually are going to help keep the journeyman on the tour, and it's going to get new pros being able to play. It'll get them to be able to play at their best potential, I would say, but it's also going to get them playing longer. And so in another video, I'll talk about the financial aspects of becoming an up-and-coming tour pro. We'll look at the Korn Ferry Tour, but also young PGA Tour rookies. And for my argument's sake, if tour purses are increasing, it's going to let, the journeymen, the people that aren't winning week in, week out, continue to compete because financially, let's say earnings are increasing faster than inflation, they're going to be able to cover their living costs, their traveling costs, their agent's costs, all the things that go into playing professional golf. They'll be able to cover that, and it'll ease the financial stress or the financial burden of making sure, okay, like my house payment's paid for. And so as tour purses increase, the players are getting a greater amount of money for their payout percentages. And so I think it's going to help journeymen, and it's going to let people that are young, up and coming, actually be able to compete week to week because they'll be able to alleviate some of the financial strain that playing professional golf can cause. And then the third reason is that larger purses are showing golf's popularity. And so, as I've always heard growing up, you're either growing or you're dying. And I think that age-old adage is still true in life, and it's true in golf. Golf purses, whether they're going up or down, they're going to reflect society's interest in the game. Growing purses reflect companies like major Fortune 500 companies or just other smaller companies. Their willingness to sponsor golf tournaments is going to reflect, okay, do they think that this investment's going to pay off in the future? But it also shows fan involvement through ticket sales, people showing up to watch tournaments, but also streaming. So NBC media companies actually wanting to put their money into golf's media and golf broadcasts. That's showing the golfing public that, okay, these companies, them putting investments into that space, it's going to show that they believe it's going to pay off. And so they do that because the game is popular, the game is thriving. And so larger purses mean that people are involved. People are wanting to watch golf, and there's demand to be involved in that space. So now that we've discussed how this impacts fans, how this impacts viewers, let's break down the PGA Tour's highest paid golfers for 2025. And I think it's important to note all of the earnings that I'm going to be talking about, they're all on the course. They're not, plus bonuses, plus other stuff. LIV's a bit different, but strictly talking about this list, all the figures and facts I give out are on course earnings. Okay, so when looking at the PGA Tour's top 10 earners, it's pretty easy to see who's going to be number one. I mean, he's been dominant all year. And according to the PGA Tour's website, link in the description below, the official money rankings has Scottie Scheffler as number one. So his total earnings are $26.5 million, and he earned on average $5,141 per shot that he took during the year. All right, let me do some quick calculations. Okay. If you made $30 an hour, let's say that. You made $30 an hour, you worked 40 hours a week. 1 week, you would earn $1,200. Times that by 4, $4,800 for a whole month. Before taxes, you earn $30 an hour, 40 hours a week. That's what you make. Scottie made more than some people make in an entire month on one shot on average, competing in the space of golf. Very healthy earnings for Scottie. Scottie won $15.9 million in earnings for winning 5 times on tour, which technically that's not correct. I actually did these figures before the Pro Tour tournament. You include that, it's 6. But between the Tour Championship and the beginning of the year, he won 5 times, and he won an average of $1.4 million per start. His earnings away from the course were estimated to be about $30 million based on my research, and that's from May 2024 to June 2025. His main sponsors are Nike Golf, TaylorMade Golf, and Rolex, which Nike Golf, I feel like him and Roy are really the poster childs, and so that'll be a repeating thing for Rory coming up soon. But Scottie had a fantastic year on the PGA Tour. Number 2 is Tommy Fleetwood with total earnings of $18.5 million. He earned on average $3,600 per shot that he took during the year. He won $10 million for winning the Tour Championship, and he won on average $973,000 per start for 2025. His earnings away from the course are estimated to be about $2.5 million. Now, in all honesty, according to the research I did, this figure could be between $2 to $3 million, but we're right in the middle at 2.5. And his main sponsors include HSBC, BMW, and Tag Heuer. Number 3, Rory McIlroy, as I mentioned earlier. His total earnings were $16 million, and he earned on average $4,240 per shot that he had in competition. So very close. This is just truly astounding to me. Very close, like I said, what somebody would make in a month, earning $30 an hour. And so Rory won $12.3 million in earnings for winning 3 times, and he won on average roughly $1.1 million, about $1.06 million per start in 2025. His earnings away from the course are estimated to be about $45 million from May of 2024 to May of 2025. And his sponsorships include Nike Golf, like I mentioned, Omega Watches, TaylorMade Golf, and he has his own sports fund named Symphony Ventures. Number 4 on the list is Russell Henley. His total earnings for the year were $14.63 million, and he earned on average $3,106 per every swing that he took during competition. He won $4 million for winning the Arnold Palmer Invitational earlier this year, and he won on average $813,000 per start for 2025. Earnings away from the course for Russell, they're estimated roughly to be about $700,000 for 2025. His sponsors include Titleist, which I can firsthand attest to, because anytime the T-Series irons commercials come on YouTube or on TV, I see him on there, and so I know he's sponsored by Titleist, Simpler Healthcare, but also Dunning Golf. And I will say that finding sponsorship information on Russell was tough. However, I think that'll change because he won the Arnold Palmer. He's currently playing in the Ryder Cup, like I talked about, and so I feel pretty secure that he's going to secure more sponsorship deals moving forward. But all in all, good year for Russell. He did very well. Number 5 is JJ Spaun. His total earnings were $12.9 million, and he earned on average $2,230 for every shot that he had in competition. JJ won $4.3 million in earnings for winning the U.S. Open back in June, and he won on average $560,000 per start that he had for the year. JJ's earnings away from the course, they're estimated to be about $1.5 million for 2025. His main sponsors are Strixon Golf, which he uses for his club equipment, but also Amerisure Insurance and Rocket Mortgage. Number 6 on the list is Justin Thomas. His total earnings were $10.9 million. It's technically 10.88, but rounded up. And he earned on average $2,058 for every shot that he had in competition. Justin won $3.6 million for winning the RBC Heritage. He won on average $544,000 for every start that he had in 2025. His earnings away from the course are estimated to be roughly about $8 million for 2025. His sponsors include FootJoy, Titleist, and Ralph Polo Lauren. Also, Ralph Polo Lauren, I'm going to tag you in this. You see the video? You'd like it? Feel free to sponsor right here. Ralph Polo. We'll do it in a heartbeat. Number 7 is Sepp Straka. He had a total earnings of $10.65 million, earning on average $2,018 per shot that he had during the year. Sepp won $5,184,000 in earnings for winning twice on tour this year, and he won on average $484,000 per start in 2025. Earnings away from the course are estimated to be about $2 million for this year. Main sponsors are Srixon Golf, which he uses for equipment, along with Adidas Golf for clothing and NetJets. Number 8, Ben Griffin. His total earnings for the year were $9.99 million, $10 million. And he earned on average $1,499 for every shot that he had in competition this year. Ben won $2,374,000 in earnings for winning twice on tour. He won the Zurich along with the Colonial, I believe the Colonial in Fort Worth. And he won on average $356,000 per start in 2025. Ben, he also was a hustler. I think I'll mention this later, but he competed in more PGA Tour tournaments than anyone else on this top 10 list. I want to say he had 28 starts, but I'll touch on that in a little while. And for sponsorships, I couldn't find any hard figures for his off-the-course earnings, but I do know his sponsors include MaxFly, which he's one of the global ambassadors for the brand, and the golf ball. But he's also sponsored by, I believe, Lord Abbott, who helped him get into professional golf while he was working as a mortgage loan officer. And so those are the two main ones that I found. But his off-the-course earnings are a bit sparse, but I would personally estimate between $500 and $1 million. But I do know those are two of his sponsors. Number 9 on the list is Patrick Cantlay. His total earnings for the year were $9.41 million, and he earned on average $1,925 for every shot that he took in competition. Now, I do need to mention that despite making it on the tour's list of highest paid golfers, he didn't win in 2025. And he earned on average $495,000 per start in 2025. His off-course earnings were sparse. I didn't really find any, but through his website, patrickcantlay.com, that website details his current sponsors, and they include, but they're not limited to, I just named a few. They include Apollo, Delta, DeWalt, Cisco, Titleist, FootJoy, along with NetJets. And last on the list, Justin Rose, last but not least, of course, is Justin Rose. His on-course earnings were $8.86 million, and he earned on average $2,163 per shot that he had during the year. Justin won $3.6 million in earnings for winning the FedEx St. Jude Championship earlier this year, and he won on average $492,000 per start that he had in 25. Earnings off the course, they're estimated to be about $14 million, according to Forbes. Like I said, link in the description. And his sponsors include MasterCard, Morgan Stanley, financial company Lamkin, Titleist, along with Workday. Now, with all that being said, I've covered out of the top 10. I will say these are the 4 main takeaways for me. They are that Scottie Scheffler and Rory McIlroy are the only 2 players on the PGA Tour who earned on average over $1 million for every start that they played. So very successful year for Scottie and Rory. Every time they teed it up, 4 days worth of work, they earned on average $1 million plus. So very good year. Second result, a thing that I noticed was Ben Griffin was hustling this year. He had 5 more starts than anyone else on this list. The next closest was J.J. Spahn, and the results paid off. 2 wins and being 8th on this year's money list. All in all, very good year for Ben. All credit. Number 3 on the list of my takeaways was all respect to the PGA Tour and their decision to make the payouts increase for the Tour Championship. But the Tour Championship is the reason that Tommy Fleetwood and Patrick Cantlay are on this list. Tommy especially for winning $10 million. I just feel like there's an overemphasis on the Tour Championship payouts, even compared to the majors. Like I said, J.J. Spahn won $4.2 million for winning the U.S. Open. I mean, one of the hardest golf tournaments in the world, bar none. The Tour Championship, Tommy won double that plus. And so, all credit to the PGA Tour and increasing what they pay the players. I just think the Tour Championship is more out of balance. I mean, I know it's the top 30 guys, the best competition. It's just out of balance. I mean, I would say maybe like Augusta, U.S. Open, you win $5 million, say a larger field. But all that being said, I think maybe Augusta, U.S. Open, $5 million, and then rebalance the Tour Championship to like 7.5, 8. It just feels like winning the U.S. Open is more of an accomplishment, in my opinion. Not saying it's right, not saying it's wrong. Winning a U.S. Open, in my opinion, is more difficult than winning the Tour Championship at East Lake. And so all props to it, but that is the only reason why Tommy Fleetwood and Patrick Cantlay are on the list. And then 4th takeaway, which this will tie in what we go and cover next, Fourth takeaway is that the PGA Tour's signature events all had purses of $20 million in 2025, and that is the exact same amount as LIV Golf standard purse. And so, like I mentioned, props to LIV Golf. They're pushing the envelope. Signature events are definitely the more lucrative tournaments for PGA Tour players. And so all props to LIV Golf, and kudos to people that won the signature events because they profited handsomely. Okay, now moving on to LIV Golf. Before I start, I do want to say that the LIV Golf numbers, they're only going to be for LIV Golf League. They don't include the major championships. And for fact's sake, I could include those in here, but I feel like the return for the effort I'd have to put into it isn't worth the time. Plus, the PGA Tour's website includes the major championships into their schedule. The earnings included for those tournaments are also inside the PGA Tour schedule on their website, and so you can see when they are and also how much money the PGA players earn for that. For LIV Golf, that website does not include that information, and so I think as LIV Golf continues to gain more official World Golf ranking points and more of their players qualify for the majors, it'll no doubt become easier, but currently I don't think the effort is worth the return. Along with, I subconsciously associate the majors with the PGA Tour. Whenever I say these figures, I'm speaking only about LIV Golf League. I'm not talking about major championships or other things. And so just wanted to say that before I start. Looking at LIV Golf's numbers, according to an article that was published by Golf Monthly, I'll link it down in the show notes, like I said, for all the resources. The league's top earner was Joaquin Niemann. His total earnings for the year were $22.2 million, and he earned on average $8,295 for every shot that he had. Joaquin earned $20 million. You'll notice a common theme for LIV Golf is that if you win a tournament, $4 million, 20% of the purse. So he won 5 times, giving him $20 million in earnings, and he won an average of $1.59 million for every start in 2025. Now, if you include his earnings for the individual championship payout, his total earnings jump up to $30.2 million. For Joaquin sponsors, they are Rolex, Adidas, and Ping Golf, which he uses for his equipment. Those are the main 3 that I found, and I do want to say that for Joaquin and the other LIV golfers, I'm only going to list the sponsors, but not the estimated earnings they have from sponsorship deals. Number 2 on the list is Jon Rahm. His total earnings on the course were $13.6 million, earning an average of $5,118 per shot that he had during competition. And I do want to point out that Jon Rahm did not win once in LIV Golf for 2025. However, he finished second in the league's overall money list. And if you look at the total number of strokes throughout the whole entire LIV Golf season, he was the leader for that. I think total-wise, let me look. His total strokes for 14 events was 2,659. And so I guess stroke-wise, he performed the best on the LIV Golf League, but he did not win a tournament. And so very, very consistent play, but he didn't win a tournament for this year. And if you include his payout from the individual championship, his total earnings jumped to $31.6 million, and he won on average $972.1 thousand per start for 2025. Now, if you look at the total earnings with the individual championship, John did have a higher earnings at $31.6 million compared to Joaquin's 30. I'm strictly looking at on-course earnings, not including the individual payouts. And so Bryson, Joaquin, and Jon Rahm all were the 3 players that received those payouts. But I'm looking at throughout the year, before any bonuses, what do the players earn? And so all that to say, John earned more in the long run over the entire season with payouts, but Joaquin earned more during those 14 tournaments that they played. Looking at John's sponsors, his sponsors include Callaway, Rolex, and Santander Bank out of Spain. And fun fact, Santander Bank also sponsors Jon Rahm's LIV Golf team, Legion 13, through Open Bank, one of their subsidiaries. And so quick sponsorship information for John. Number 3 on the list was Bryson DeChambeau with total earnings of $10.3 million. He earned on average $3,858 per shot that he had during the year. And if you include his individual earnings from the individual championship payout, his total earnings jumped to $14.3 million. He won $4 million for winning once on LIV Golf, and he averaged $738,000 per start for 2025. Bryson's sponsors include Reebok Golf, which is also the team apparel, a partner for his golf team on LIV, the Crushers Golf Club, along with Qualcomm Technologies And I would argue that Bryson has the largest presence on YouTube Golf. And so if you factor in his YouTube channel earnings, sponsorships, and ad time that he has for that, I would say that probably equates to several hundred thousands of dollars, possibly even $1 million in ad revenue and other things from YouTube. And so doing very well off the course. But the main sponsor that I found was Reebok, and his equipment wise, it's kind of just all over the place. He doesn't really have a lockdown sponsor, but Reebok Golf is his main sponsor. He's doing quite well, I would say. Number 4 for LIV Golf is Dean Burmester. Total earnings are $9.8 million, and he earned on average $3,612 per shot that he had during the year. He won $4 million for winning once on LIV Golf, and he won an average of $702,000 per start. His main sponsors are Castor Golf Apparel, along with Strixon Golf, which I believe he uses for his equipment. Number 5 is Sebastian Munoz. His total earnings for the year was $9.7 million, and he earned $3,604 per shot that he had during the year. He won $4 million for winning once on LIV Golf, and he averaged $694,000 per start for 2025. For Sebastian, sponsorship-wise, the only information that I could find was his main sponsor, Ping Golf, for his equipment. I will say a lot of the LIV players, it was hard to find specific sponsors unless they had their own website. And for Sebastian, Ping Golf was the only main sponsor that I found for him. Looking now at number 6 on the list, it is Taylor Gooch. His total earnings were $8.7 million, and he earned on average $3,201 for every shot that he had during the year. He won once on LIV Golf, earned $4 million, and he averaged $624.7 thousand per start in 2025. His sponsorship information was relatively limited, with the only real information I found being from his foundations partners. Those are Hope is Alive, the AJGA, Aligned Automation, Aligned Global Consulting, along with Rose Hill Builders, just to name a few. Number 7 on the list for LIV was Patrick Reed. His total earnings were $8.2 million, and he earned on average $3,031 for every shot that he had during the year. He won $4 million for winning once, I believe, in Texas and Dallas on LIV Golf, and he averaged $588.5 thousand for every start that he had during the year. His sponsors are... Honestly, I have no idea. From all the information that I could find on Patrick, it doesn't look like he has any sponsors, to be honest. I know his website, Go Team Reed, it wouldn't load for me. I couldn't get it to work on my VPN, but not off my VPN. And I know his past sponsors include PXG, Nike, and Castor, but I don't think they're in the picture any longer. And so, honestly, for Patrick, maybe the golf ball, maybe Titleist, but I couldn't find any information on that. And so, just kind of up in the air with Patrick. Number 8 on the list is Sergio Garcia. He had total earnings of $8 million, and he earned on average $2,927 per shot that he had during the year. He won $4 million for winning once on the tour, and he averaged $571.5 thousand per start for 2025. The sponsorship information for Sergio is probably the most accessible, easy to find. His sponsors include Omega. He's a global ambassador for the company, UBS, Gooder Sunglasses, and Stubert. Number 9 is Mark Leishman. His total earnings for LIV Golf were $6.72 million. He earned on average $2,440 for every shot that he had during the year. Mark won $4 million for winning once on the league, and he won an average of $480,000 per start for 2025. His sponsors include Back Bay Brewing Company, Callaway Golf, which he's been with for quite a while, and Nextbelt. Lastly on the list, but not least indeed, is Carlos Ortiz. He was number 10 with total earnings of $6.69 million, and he earned on average $2,459 for every shot that he had in competition. I need to point out that Carlos didn't win this year on LIV Golf, but he still managed to be in the top 10 earners. So like Jon Rahm, very consistent performance all year, and he won an average of $478,000 for every start in 2025. His sponsors include Grayson Golf Apparel, Stubert Apparel, and also Rolex. So, looking at all those players, top 10 list for LIV, a couple of main takeaways for me are, first, Joaquin Niemann's domination. He was this season's only multi-time winner, and he was handsomely rewarded for it. He won $20 million in 5 starts. So very, very impressive, leaving his other 9 tournaments that he played to give him $2.2 million. So he earned roughly 9 times as much in 5 starts compared to the rest of his entire season. And so very good return on his starts, making him the highest earning player across the PGA Tour, along with LIV Golf. Second, I think I touched on this earlier, but I want to reiterate this because it needs to be mentioned, is that if you tally up all of the players' strokes throughout every tournament that LIV Golf played, Jon Rahm had the total lowest number of strokes across the league, and despite that, he didn't win a tournament this season. And so very consistent, very high achieving and high performing. He just happened to be outplayed every week whenever he would go against Joaquin Niemann or a few other people. And so very consistent play, had a lot of top tens, and a very good year for Jon. Third is that Joaquin Niemann, tying back into point number one, he earned 61% more per shot than Scottie Scheffler did. So Joaquin earned roughly $8,300, and that's compared to Scottie's $5,140. Meaning Joaquin played 5 fewer tournaments than Scottie, and LIV Golf, their 3-day tournaments, PGA Tour's 4-day tournaments, and he earned $3,000 more for every time he hit a golf ball in competition. And so I think if LIV Golf could figure out how to fix their official World Golf ranking points for the league, and that fixed the issue of getting their players qualified for the majors, I would argue, based on these numbers, that it's the best time for value money in golf. So if a player is treating themselves, I mean, they're not doing this literally, but I think if they're viewing themselves and they're treating themselves as an employee, I'm an employee, I'm going to maximize the time that I spend and what I earn doing my craft and be as good of a professional as I can. Looking at LIV Golf League, a player's time value for their effort for their playing results is very, very lucrative on LIV Golf. LIV Golf is very well compensating their players. They're going to get a good return on their time, I think. And so, like I said, based on these numbers, LIV Golf has a very, very good financial proposition for the league. And so, all that being done with LIV, I want to move next to the third thing that I want to cover, and really the eye-opening part for me is if you look at the PGA Tour's earnings for 2025 and you compare them to 2020 when Dustin Johnson was world number one, you compare those to 2015 whenever Jordan Spieth was number one in the world, and you look ultimately at Tiger in 2005 when he was number one in the world. And so, looking first, decided to compare the PGA Tour's 2025 official money earnings to those of 5 years ago, when I said Dustin Johnson was world number one. And I think it's fair to mention that during this time, COVID-19 was everywhere. It was the COVID-19 outbreak. And so competitions and major tournaments, they're in flux. Everything's changing. There's a lot of just, making do with what we have and trying to figure things out as we go. And so the schedule for 2020 was sparse compared to 2025 and even the following years at 2021 and 2022. But at that time, the world was doing a good thing in fighting COVID. And so in terms of the PGA Tour's average purse amount, it was $7.47 million across all regular competition events, and it was $11.7 million across the 4 majors. So Dustin Johnson earned $5.84 million in 2020 as the number one player in the world, and that is $20.7 million lower than what Scottie earned this year. Now, granted, Scottie earned more money because he won more times than Dustin did. I believe Dustin won 3 times in 2020, and Scottie won 5 to 6, depending on when you look at the schedule for 2025. But still, $20.7 million less than what Scottie earned this year for Dustin Johnson. And adjusting for inflation, Dustin's earnings in 2020, they're equivalent to $7.3 million in 2025, which is still $19.3 million lower than Scottie's. Dustin averaged $1.7 million in earnings for every tournament that he won in 2020, and compared to Scottie's 3.2, that's really 3.18, but 3.2 million in 2025. That is roughly 5.1 million less for every tournament that he won in 2020. Finally, looking at every shot that Dustin Johnson hit in a tournament that he won, he averaged $6,520 for earnings per shot. And in 2025, Scottie averaged $11,903. And so that's 82% higher than Dustin Johnson 5 years ago. Now, moving to 2015. You compare 2025 earnings to 2015, Jordan Spieth, number one player in the world. In terms of the average purse amount, it's $6.42 million across regular competitions events 10 years ago, and it was $9.8 million across the 4 majors. Jordan Spieth earned $12 million in 2015 as the number one player in the world, and that is $14.5 million lower than Scottie's in 2025. Adjusting for inflation, his 2015 earnings would have been $16.2 million, and that's roughly about 10.3 lower than Scottie Scheffler. He averaged $1.4 million in earnings for every tournament that he won, compared to Scottie's 3.2, about 1.8, 1.9 less than what Scottie earned for Jordan. And then finally, looking at every shot that Jordan hit in a competition that he won, he averaged $5,105 in earnings per shot, and Scottie averaged, like I mentioned earlier, $11.9 thousand. So that is, for Scottie, 130% higher than what Jordan earned 10 years ago. And so now, looking at the GOAT, looking at Tiger, obviously, with this being 20 years ago, we're going to have to adjust for inflation, just like we did with everything else. And so it's 20 years ago. A lot's changed in the world. But I would say this is arguably golf's biggest time in the world with Tiger Woods. He spent 371 weeks at world number one throughout his career up to this point. And I would argue that Tiger Woods, more than anyone, should have been compensated for his role in elevating golf on a global stage just because of his dominance, the margin of wins, his global presence. He was just the game's biggest needle mover, and I want to see how his earnings compare to Scottie in 2025. And I would say Tiger laid the groundwork and the foundation for Scottie and every other great player that's come after Tiger. And so looking at 20 years ago for 2005, the PGA Tour's average purse amount was $5.2 million across its regular season events. And then the majors were at 5.9 for the season of 2005. Tiger Woods earned $10.63 million as the number one player in the world in 2005, and this is $15.96 million lower than Scottie Scheffler in 2025. Adjusting for inflations, Tiger's earnings would have been about 17.6, so huge adjustment for inflation. There was 17.6 million, which is still $8.9 million less than what Scottie had this year. Tiger averaged $1.2 million in earnings for every tournament that he won, compared to Scottie's 3.2, so $2 million less. And finally, for every shot that Tiger Woods hit in a tournament that he won, he averaged $4,220 in earnings, and Scottie averaged $11,900, and that is 182% higher than Tiger Woods 20 years ago. So starting with first main takeaway, Scottie Scheffler earned $3.2 million on average for his wins this year. It's $1.5 million more than Dustin Johnson. It's $1.8 million more than Jordan Spieth, and it's $2 million more than Tiger Woods in 2005. Golfers, particularly the highest earning ones that we've discussed, are making more money on the game's biggest stages than they ever have before. Scottie is doing fantastic compared to golfers in the past, even when adjusting for inflation. And so number one, Scottie had a very successful year, and he made $2 million more for every tournament that he won than Tiger did. And so very big jump, as you can see, as we've discussed. The second one, bringing LIV back into the picture, is that LIV golfers, they're holding their own financially. The league's purses are $20 million per tournament. And that's higher than every PGA Tour regular season event, and they're comparable to the signature events on the PGA Tour. And I would say that the LIV golfers, I've heard the LIV Golf CEO, oh my gosh, I'm absolutely forgetting his name. What is it? They just got a new one. Scott O'Neill. So I've heard on a podcast that Rick Shields did with Scott O'Neill, talking about how players have walked up to him and they've talked to Scott about, okay, like, we really, really enjoy the relaxed schedule. Their wives are enjoying it. I remember Scott pointed that out in his interview with Rick Shields. And so I will say that LIV golfers enjoy a more relaxed schedule. It's only 3-day tournaments compared to 4 days. And while all 10 LIV golfers on LIV Golf that we talked about earned more money per shot that they took than any other PGA Tour player except for Scottie and Rory. And so all 10 LIV golfers, Joaquin and Carlos, they earn more money each time they hit the golf ball in competition than anyone else on the PGA Tour, bar Scottie and Rory. And so very good performance from the LIV golfers. I think, like I mentioned, time value for your money. LIV Golf holds its own financially and does very well, I would argue. Third of my main takeaway was the average PGA Tour purse amount. If you look at it adjusted for inflation, it increased 7% from 2005 to 2015. It increased 9% from 2015 to 2020. And it increased 36% more from 2020 to 2025. And so if you start 20 years ago to current day, that is a 58% increase in 20 years. And so, as I mentioned, LIV Golf, COVID, more people being home, wanting to watch golf on TV, also just golf's popularity boom after COVID. But I would argue LIV Golf has pushed the needle. It made the money conversation become more of an important factor for players where they're going to go play at. And it's also just become more of an issue that both tours need to talk about and have to deal with. And I would argue LIV Golf has been a significant contributing factor to that, and also just golf's popularity growing after COVID. Lastly, the fourth main takeaway I had is that the PGA Tour's just looking solely at the PGA Tour, their value per shot, how much players are making on every shot they hit, has increased over time, showing me that players are able to better capitalize on the amount of time they spend on the golf course. Like, if I have to be out here for 4 days, I want to earn as much as I can. And so Scottie's winning, per shot earnings were $11,800. That is, again, $5,000 more than Dustin, and that is $7,600 more than Tiger's 20 years ago. And players are getting paid more for every shot they hit on the golf course, and that is a good thing for the players. They're getting, you could argue, a better share of what they're owed for the demand and the value they bring to the tournament. And so players are increasing their earnings, and that's good for them. Sorry, if you hear a dog, that is not my dog, but the neighbor's dog loves to bark at random points. But all that being said, this discussion circles back to the point that I made earlier. Money's becoming more of a focal point in the world of golf. Players want to maximize their time on the course. They want to play in the most lucrative space that they can. And LIV Golf's entrance into the golfing world 3 years ago, it's changed how players choose where they want to play. And I will add that another point, after every tournament, the PGA Tour or LIV Golf, I log on social media, Instagram, YouTube, any sort of social media platform. One of the first posts that I'm going to see is a $20 million purse for LIV, or the winner of this PGA Tour is making $4 million, $3.1 million, or something similar to that. And so I think the conversation around money in golf, it's not going to go away anytime soon. It's not just going to disappear. And I've really been quite fond of LIV Golf for the financial aspect. And I have to say props to them for bringing about a change in purse amounts for the PGA Tour and professional golfers as a whole. And I wish that I could have compared the payout percentages in this video, like looking at the winners' payout percentages, looking at payout percentages on different placings in tournaments. So 25th place, 50th place, 71st place, and see how those have changed over time. But it already took me 2 to 3 weeks to compile all this data and this information. And so that is another video in itself, but keep on the lookout. It's probably going to come soon. And so by this point, you've probably listened to close to 90 plus statistics about golf earnings. And so I would call you a dedicated listener. If it's my mom, love you, thank you. But I like to thank everyone else for supporting the channel and watching this podcast and listening to this podcast. As I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, it's our second episode. And so it's taken me quite a while to gather all the information. Excel's been my best friend through this process. And so I'll make sure to link every website that I used, every resource that I used during the show notes of this video. And if you would, please share this episode. Share it with a coworker, share it with a friend, anyone that you think would find these interesting. Like I mentioned, I put in a lot of effort. I'd like to make sure that I get the best return for my time. And so any support that you can give me, I really appreciate that. You can find the podcast here on YouTube or on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. YouTube's going to have video. It's just me talking into a phone. So not much more I can really say about that. I mean, you will be able to see my golf cart and whatever drink I have. It was Topo Chico last time. It's changed between, if you haven't also noticed, this was recorded throughout the span of 2 days. And so it changed from vitamin C to just plain water that I ran out of. And so you'll be able to see whatever clothes I have on, my wonderful computer case that I have, and my nice golf cart. And so you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. And before I finish, the next episode that I'm working on, I'm going to give a teaser for it. We're going to cover Augusta National's changes for qualifying for the Masters tournament. In April 2026, it's only getting closer. And so recently the Masters released new information about how players are going to qualify for this tournament next year. And so you definitely don't want to miss that. I'll give my thoughts on it, what's going to change for professionals, but also amateurs, and see how that affects players across the world. And so thanks again for watching. Hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Keep on the lookout for the next episode, and we'll be back shortly. Thank you.